everybody, I'm Ryan, and today we're going to talk about the flex slots and different builds of green-black mid-range in Standard. If you're looking for sideboard stuff or an overall analysis of the deck, I posted those in the previous week, so you should check those out. This time, we're just going to look at the flex slots, so let's do that. We're going to start with the non-flex slots. These are the non-negotiables in green-black mid-range in Standard. These 42 cards in the main deck, and these 4 cards in the sideboard. You can pause and look at them if you would like, but we have to talk about the 18 cards we need to pick for the main deck and the 11 cards we need to pick for the sideboard. And it's really surprising to me that this is like this, because frankly, green-black midrange is the second most popular deck in Standard at the moment. And the fact that there isn't a more solid stock list is really surprising to me, but it's also really cool that you can do almost anything with the deck. But these are the flex slots in green-black mid-range. Now, the first thing you're going to do is it wants to run 25 lands, and only 21 lands are stock. And so you're going to select what you want for the lands between 2 fountain points, which allows you to sacrifice a token, draw a card, which includes like map tokens and these vampire tokens from Preacher of the Schism and stuff like that. You can pay 3 mana to create a 1/1 blue fish creature token, or pay 4 mana to create a treasure token. It's really good if games go really long, allows you to get some pretty good card advantage, provide a threat if they deal with literally everything, you know, stuff like that. Mishra's Foundry taps for a generic mana. You can pay 2 mana. Mishra's Foundry become a 2/2 assembly worker artifact creature until end of turn, and it's still a land. And you can pay 1 mana and tap it to have target attacking assembly worker get +2/+2 until end of turn. So they combo with each other, so having multiples is really solid. This is pretty good if you want a cheap way to, again, apply pressure and maybe mess up combat and stuff like that. Or an option is 3 Soulstone Sanctuary, where you can pay 4 mana and have it become a 3/3 vigilance of all creature types, and it's still a land. Notice that it doesn't stop being a creature, which is bad against board wipes, but really nice because you don't have to keep putting mana into it. And 2 Underground Mortuary, and enters tapped when it enters Surveil 1, which is really good if you want to make sure you hit your colors. So you're going to select 4 of any of these lands to start to finish out your mana base. Now you can choose to play Cut Down 3 and 4 if you're worried about aggressive decks. This is a 1 mana instant destroy target creature with total power and toughness 5 or less. You can play a main deck Duress if you're worried about the decks like Domain or Control or Mono White or things like that. The second main deck Anoint with Affliction is very good against the white enduring creature, is very good in the mirror against Mosswood Dread Knight, and also is just like a pretty unconditional removal for the red decks, especially for Heartfire Hero. 4 Deep Cavern Bat is an option. It's a 2 mana 1/1 with Flying of Lifelink. When Deep Cavern Bat enters, look at target opponent's hand. You may exile a non-land card from it until Deep Cavern Bat leaves the battlefield. This is really good at being able to tear up your opponent's hand. However, they get the card back when Deep Cavern Bat goes away, and so it's not very good against decks with a ton of removal. You can play a single Nowhere to Run. Is a 2 mana flash enchantment. When Nowhere to Run enters, target creature an opponent controls gets -3/-3 till end of turn. Again, very good against like the Heartfire Hero stuff. Creatures your opponent controlled can be the target of spells or abilities as though they didn't have Hexproof. Ward abilities of the creatures don't trigger. And it's pretty solid. And it's nice to just have it on the battlefield so you don't have to worry about ward and stuff. You can play 2 Scavenging Ooze. Has main deck Graveyard Hate, but also it's like a decent finisher and gain some life. It's a 2 mana 2/2, exile target card from a graveyard. If it was a creature card, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature and you gain 1 life. You play main deck Terra Sunder for artifact and enchantment hate, and really additional exile hate for 2 more mana. You can play 4 Preacher of the Schisms. It is a 3 mana 2/4 with Death Touch. Whenever Preacher of the Schism attacks the player with the most life or tied for the most life, create a 1/1 white vampire creature token with lifelink. Whenever Preacher of the Schism attacks while you have the most life or are tied for the most life, you draw a card and lose a life. So it's card advantage, it's a decent blocker, also creates more creatures, which end up being kind of hard to deal with. Really good for people that want to lean harder into the mid-range, like I play better creatures than you strategy. Competing for that 3-drop slot is Sentinel in the Nameless City. Is a 3 mana 3/4 with Vigilance. When Sentinel in the Nameless City enters or attacks, create a map token. Now, it's an even better blocker, an even better attacker. It can be on offense and defense with Vigilance. And creating a map token allows you to dig for certain things in your deck and sometimes effectively draw cards, make your creatures bigger, which is all very solid. You can play a Tranquil Frillback, which is great artifact or enchantment hate. Also decent graveyard hate, and also decent against the aggressive decks because it can gain life and block really well. You can play the second Maelstrom Pulse just as an unconditional removal for 3 mana. The third, Shieldred the Apocalypse, really good against decks that draw a bunch of cards, but also very good against the aggressive decks and being a pretty good blocker and gains life. You can play a The End, which is a 4-mana instant. Spells cost 2 less to cast if your life total is 5 or less, which is rough if that comes up. Exile target creature or planeswalker, searches controller's graveyard, hand, and library for any number of cards with the same name as that permanent and exile them. That player shuffles and then draws a card for each card exiled from their hand this way. So it's great unconditional removal for 4 mana and extracts a thing that we might be afraid of from their deck and exiles, so it's really good against the enduring creatures or whatever. You can play 2 Gix's Command. This 5-mana sorcery, choose 2, put 2 +1/+1 counters and up to 1 creature against lifelink till end of turn, or destroy each creature with power 2 or less, or return up to 2 creature cards from your graveyard to your hand, or each opponent sacrifices a creature with the highest power among creatures they control. Now, this is mostly good against creature decks and really aggressive decks, so you can gain life and kind of wipe their board. And so if you're worried about that, Gix's Command is great. You can play 2 Thrun, Breaker of Silence, which is a 5-mana 5/5. The spell can't be countered, has trample. And Thrun, Breaker of Silence, can't be the target of non-green spells your opponent control or abilities from non-green sources your opponent control. During your turn, Thrun has Indestructible. This is very, very good against other mid-range decks and other things that are trying to remove it with spot removal. Or you can go back to the Demon package and play 4 Unholy Annex / Ritual Chamber. It's a room where 1 room, Unholy Annex, 3 mana. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card. If you control a demon, each opponent loses 2 life, you gain 2 life. Otherwise, you just lose 2 life. And its Ritual Chamber is a 5-mana room. When you unlock this door, create a 6/6 black demon creature token with flying. So this allows you to have an enchantment that lets you draw a ton of cards. Also is a threat in and of itself, being a 5-mana 6/6, all wrapped up in one. So you're going to select 18 of these 42 cards to be added to your main deck, and you're going to pick 11 of these 25 cards in your sideboard. So let's look at them. I've already talked about Duress, I already talked about Anointment Affliction, and Nowhere to Run. But Blot Out is a 3-mana instant. Target opponent exiles a creature or planeswalker they control with the greatest mana value among creatures and planeswalkers they control. Just decent unconditional removal that doesn't target, which is pretty solid. Token Miasma. You can play 2 of these. 3-mana kicker for a green. If the spell is kicked, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control. All creatures get -2/-2 end of turn. Just a decent board wipe against these aggressive decks. You can play 2 Liliana of the Veil. Decent against decks that don't play a lot of creatures because you can control the board and make them sacrifice multiple times. Also really good against decks that you think you can win the top deck war against, like Control or something. You play 2 Malicious Eclipse. Fulfills the same role of Choking Miasma. All creatures get -2/-1 till end of turn. However, if we care about the exile factor, Malicious Eclipse is a little better. We already talked about The End, but you could play 4 Harvester of Misery. It's a 5-mana 5/4 with Menace. When Harvester of Misery enters, other creatures you get -2/-2 until end of turn. And you pay 2 mana and discard Harvester of Misery to have target creature get -2/-2 till end of turn. Really good against the aggressive decks because it can wipe their board for 5 mana or be early removal. We've already talked about Terra Sunder, just artifacts and enchantment hate, and Tranquil Fillback, just kind of a jack of all trades situation. We can play up to 3 Obstinate Baloth as a 4-mana 4/4. When it enters, you gain 4 life. If a spell or ability opponent controls causes you discard Obstinate Baloth, put it on battlefield instead of put it into your graveyard. That part is not super relevant in Standard. However, being a 4/4 body that gains 4 life is very good against the aggressive decks. You can play a Vivian Reed, a 5-mana planeswalker that starts at 5 loyalty. It's +1, look at the top 4 cards of your library, may reveal a creature, a land card from among them, and put them into your hand. Put the rest of the bottom of your library in a random order. Its -3 is destroy target artifact, enchantment, or a creature with flying. Its -8 is you get an emblem with creatures you control, get +2/+2, and have vigilance, trample, and indestructible. Really good against decks that go really long. Also really solid against decks with artifacts and enchantments that we care about. And we can play 2 Ghost Vacuum. Good graveyard hate. Also decent against the enduring cards because they do hit the graveyard and you have a chance to interrupt them coming back. So you're going to select 11 of these 25 cards to be added to your deck. And if you do that, combine with selecting 18 of these 42 cards, you have your very own stock version of Golgari Midrange. Now, if you like this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on social medias. Links are above me and in the description. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.